What a treat this is going to be. Tyler Lewis is with us. He was a former McDonald's All-American. You remember him as a human highlight reel with a rock in his hands. Went on to a fine career at NC State along with Butler, multiple NCAA tournament trips, including a Sweet 16 his senior year. He is now on Elon's staff, as you can tell by his collared shirt. One of the great up-and-coming minds in basketball. Tyler, I'm Bryan Fenley. I want to welcome you on. Thanks for doing this. And before we get into all things basketball, how about the X's and O's breakdown on the way you proposed to your wife and how that all came about? A pretty neat story.
No, I mean, it all happened. Obviously, I knew my wife since we started dating. My junior year of high school. We've known each other my whole life. We went to middle school together. So whenever I made the move to Butler, it was honestly great because we had like a year that we were kind of distanced away from each other. She went to Chapel Hill. I was at NC State. So when I was there, 30 minutes down the road, I was able to see her. So whenever I moved there, our relationship just kept getting stronger and stronger. And honestly, I knew going into my senior year that she was definitely the one I want to spend the rest of my life with. So, whenever I knew I was going to get engaged, I had a couple of my friends, great videographers, and they helped me set everything up. I couldn't have done it without them. But whenever I wanted to do something special, I wanted to do something kind of like basketball related,
Sure.
and no better other place than Hinkle Fieldhouse. Not only was she was able to watch me play there for 2 years, but she'll always remember that place as the place she got engaged at too. So, it was definitely one of the most nerve-wracking nights of my life because I'm sitting there, I'm trying to hide a ring in my pocket, which she told me I didn't do a great job of, but but it's okay. So when I walked in to the Hinkle Fieldhouse, she was right there beside me. As soon as we walked in, the videographers, they could see. So they started playing a video on the Jumbotron. So honestly, I think she kind of felt it coming.
Okay.
But it was good. It was a great video. It kind of made that moment kind of easier for me because I didn't have to do a lot of talking because she could look at the video. So I was able to like walk her to half court and then said my few little words, my spiel to her. And luckily enough, she said yes. And now we are 3 years married so far.
Congratulations. So how would you compare the nerves you felt that day to any sort of nervousness you have ever felt on the court?
It's definitely a different kind of nervous. I think my whole life being a basketball player, like you put in the work every day since I was 3 or 4 years old. So there's not too many moments on the court where I felt nervous out there. Of course you get the jitters like right before the game of like man, like this is an awesome experience. But like I've done it tens of thousands of times. So yes, it's different when you're playing in Cameron Indoor Stadium rather than say before I transferred to Oak Hill for Sykes Country Day. Yeah, that's different. But it's still the same game. It's still 2 points for a layup, 3 points for a three. But that night was definitely a little bit more nerve-wracking, I would say. And I knew she was gonna say yes, but like obviously you didn't want to fumble the ring. You had a lot of other stuff. Like I was just I couldn't get my words out, and I'm just like, oh geez, this is interesting. Like hopefully this is my one and only time I'm gonna do it. So
Yeah.
might as well do it right.
Yeah. And I was hoping you would give that answer that you were more nervous when it came to asking her to marry you than any basketball game, which played right into what I was hoping. And yes, you've been married to her, but you could also say when you were younger, and even to this day, you're married to basketball in a way, although it's much different. And when did you first become infatuated with basketball? You said you were 3 or 4. How did it all come about? Because I know you come from a basketball family. Your brother, obviously, really involved in the game. So was your father as well.
No, honestly, probably around 3 or 4 years old, I grew up. I mean, when I was little, I played 3 sports. I played baseball, soccer, basketball. And especially around those ages, my dad was always, I was lucky enough, I was blessed. He was always around helping me out with every sport possible. My brother was 3 years older than me. I looked up to him a ton. And I kind of just, whatever he did, I wanted to do too. So if he was outside in the driveway shooting, or if he was out backyard kicking soccer ball or throwing baseball, like I was doing the same thing. I mean, those were two of my biggest role models in my life. It was my brother and my dad. And those are two people who I look up to. And I like the reason why I would have such a great career and I'm where I'm at today is because of those two.
Your brother and you right now on the court, you're lacing up the sneakers one-on-one at the home hoop. How much do you win by? How badly do you beat him?
I don't know. I mean, it took me a while. I think the first time I ever beat him was like my freshman year of high school. We were out there playing. I mean, I threw up a lucky shot and it banked in. I still remember to this day where I shot the shot from, how the shot went in, and I didn't want to play again for the rest of the day because I wanted to end on a win.
Of course.
So, and it just made him feel like that. Oh man, now I got to wait a whole nother day. It's just so mad. But I don't know. Like we're both in still really good shape. Both try to work out as much as we can, and I don't know. I mean, I would like to say I'm gonna win, but
Of course.
I mean, I'm not gonna tell you he's gonna win because I'm confident in myself. So
Yeah.
I'm definitely going with myself there.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I'm on Team Tyler. Your confidence has shown itself on the court, and I don't think it's cockiness, although I think you do have some bulldog in you, which I love. When did you first tell yourself, or it became clear to you, readily apparent, that you kind of were a prodigy with basketball and that you had something really special going on?
I wouldn't say I knew I was a prodigy, but I knew I was going to be a pretty decent basketball player. Probably around, like when I was 9 years old. My dad coached our AAU team, and we won the AAU state championship. We went down to nationals, finished 5th down there. It was in Memphis, Tennessee. It was kind of crazy how I kind of started my career in Memphis, Tennessee with AAU nationals, and that's where I played my last game.
Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, it's sort of ironic how stuff like that is so weird how things work out like that. But at an early age, I had a high basketball IQ, and I never knew what my body was going to do, how much I was going to grow. I was always the smallest person on the court. I normally like to play up in age groups to play against older competition. Like I said, I was playing with my brother and his friends sometimes. And I think that along the way kind of helped me mature and helped me get to like find things on the court of what can I do to help my team win or help me get better with me being super small on the court. Because my whole life I was always the smallest kid on the court. And honestly, there was probably 1 or 2% of the time where there was somebody smaller than me on the court. So honestly, just from the early age, I would say probably around 9 to that range. But once I hit like 6th, 7th, after that, once I hit 6th, 7th grade, I had started playing like JV basketball. I went to a private school, so I was able to play like high school basketball and middle school. So at that point, I started seeing myself being able to not only make an impact, being able to make an impact on the court. And I was like, man, I can really be good at the game of basketball.
Tyler, this is going to blow your mind. So when you were at Forsyth, so I went to UNC Greensboro, and what I do recall, so I used to work for WXII in Winston-Salem, and I was in school at UNCG, and I was also a sports producer. And so we would film highlights of your games, or when you were at Oak Hill, we would get stuff off TV and run your highlights. And I remember that. And so it's so crazy to think that kind of worlds collide once again. And you brought up the point about how you were more or less usually the smallest guy on the court. But you made it very clear, Tyler, that you determine how people should view you. Like, you always seem to play bigger than you were. And I think that garnered respect and honor from people, because they knew that they couldn't look at you as the 5'10" guy you are, and that you played so much more than your height suggests, and that you cracked the code. And it's admirable, because you give guys like myself that are 5'10" hope, and that, like, wow, this guy can play in the McDonald's All-American game. This guy can play top tier Division I basketball, and he's like my size. It's an added amount of admiration for somebody that does something special and is like your body frame. There's just an extra level of like reverence that comes that I see from you when you have accomplished all this stuff. And I've listened to some of your prior interviews when you were younger, and you talked about basketball and how you didn't really have a social life because you were always in the gym. You were not really a guy that would go to parties. Your dance floor was the court, and maybe your girlfriend was basketball. What's the longest you've ever been in a gym by yourself in a single day practicing?
Oh, longest I ever been in a gym by myself. See, I'm not I like to bring someone to the gym with me.
Sure.
So, but I mean, there's been times where I spent 4 or 5 hours in the gym, and I'm not gonna say I've been in there the whole day, but because normally I would do all my basketball. I'd say during the summer, do all my basketball stuff like in the morning. So, because we had a goal at my house too, so I'd like to go out there at night so I could be around the family. My dad could rebound. My mom, she could go out there, and I mean, just be around them and still
Sure.
be able to get workouts in on my driveway. But I would probably say 4 to 5 hours. I just love being in it. I love being around the game. I love playing, not only working with myself individually, but I love playing pickup games. I still love playing pickup games. And people say like, "Oh, pickup games teaches you bad habits," but honestly, sometimes pickup games is the closest thing to 5-on-5 you can
Sure.
get.
Yeah.
So, and I mean, so I love playing, and I love trying to find as many pickup games as I could, going to the YMCA, or even just calling high school kids, friends down the street or whatever, just trying to get them to come down and play 5-on-5.
Your slickness with the basketball garnered the reputation as like you were a social media darling on YouTube. Thousands and thousands of people watched your moves, the no look passes, the behind the back stuff, and the swagger like you talked about. When somebody looks at you and they try to associate you with a current or past NBA player, what's the first name that people think of when they try to make that correlation?
The one I hear the most is probably Steve Nash.
Okay.
So even, I mean, especially in high school, I had like long floppy hair going crazy.
Yeah.
So, and honestly, that's who I modeled my game after too. Because during that time, Steve Nash, he had back-to-back
Yeah.
MVPs, and just someone who I really looked up to. And he played the game the right way. He was a little bit bigger than I was, but just someone who I could really kind of model my game after. We were very similar out there on the court. I mean, had to create space off the bounce. We weren't the strongest guys. We had to figure out ways that we could maneuver around on the court where we can be productive, and just reading ball screens, reading defensive coverages, and being able to make passes over bigger players. And just, I really watched a lot of Steve Nash growing up. And honestly too, I was kind of lucky enough to have Chris Paul right there in Winston-Salem
Right.
in my
Yeah.
backyard. And he's another person who I really looked up to. He was small. I mean, his game's like different than mine,
Sure.
but he was someone who I looked up to in a lot of ways, kind of being like a hometown hero, and just being someone who's from the area who, I mean, he's awesome, giving back to the community. I grew up going to his Chris Paul backcourt camps, and I mean, he's a great person too. Being able to, his leadership's unbelievable as well.
Chris Paul making the Winston-Salem community proud. You as well, especially when you got the invite to take part in the McDonald's All-American game. And here you are with these guys that are 6'6", 6'7", 6'8", a lot taller, and you are holding your own against all of them. What was that week like when you got to practice with these guys and have all the eyeballs on you? What was the most eye-opening part of all of that?
I think the most like eye-opening part of the whole experience that whole week was being able to say, "Oh, this kid's gonna be NBA next." Like,
Yeah.
I mean, look, I mean Anthony Bennett. I mean, I know he has number one draft pick, Shabazz Muhammad, T.J. Warren. I mean, just so the list goes on. Like Marcus Page, Yogi Ferrell, Chris Dunn, like Kyle Anderson. Like just the list goes on and on of how many great players that were in that game. And just being able to be on the same court as them, being able to produce out there, and just being able to be around that talent and being able to spend a whole week with those guys. And it was one of the best weeks of my life. I really enjoyed the experience. They did everything first class. And I mean, if I could relive that week, I would go back right now and do it. So it was awesome.
I don't blame you one bit when you think about how special that week must have been for you. Okay, who is the best player you've played with or against? Doesn't matter what level, college, AAU, whenever. The best player you've ever been on the court with, who do you think that is?
The best player I've ever been on the court with. I'm gonna say two people.
Okay.
T.J. Warren at NC State. He was just one of the best scorers I've ever been around. He was ACC Player of the Year my sophomore year. He's averaging high teens right now in the NBA. So, I mean, he's a phenomenal player. And then high school, I know a guy that you know really well who ended up being the 23rd pick in the draft that year too, at TJ's draft when he was Jordan Adams. I mean, the kid, he's just so smooth out on the court. Doesn't look like he belongs on the court. He sort of has like me and like if you saw us walking in the mall, you'd be like, those two don't play basketball. Like what? Like, and then it was just so funny, like just seeing like all the eyes that we got when we were at Oak Hill together. And I remember that my first experience at Oak Hill, like one of the teachers asked Coach Smith, like, "Who's that little white kid following basketball kids around?" I'm like, "Geez, like, can I get a little respect here?" But I mean,
seriously.
No, but it was good. So those two, I mean, they were really good. Just I loved playing with them because they were such good scorers. It made the court a lot more open for me for the way they shoot it, the way they shot it, and the way they can score it. So it made my job a lot easier. And the best person I probably ever played it against.
Yeah.
That's a tough one.
Sure.
Played against a lot of good players.
Yeah, you were in the ACC. You were at Butler. I mean, I can't imagine you digging into the archives. There's so much talent that you played against.
I'm gonna probably go Chris Dunn.
Okay.
He's the one that probably gave me the most trouble. I mean, just with his length and his athleticism and the way he can just attack, and he's really good. And I mean, I don't know. That's the first person that kind of came to my mind. I mean, obviously Marcus Page was really good at North Carolina, like phenomenal player. I mean, there's some NBA guys that I played against that maybe they were big guys or wings, but like going head to head with somebody, like if I was on the ball, like Chris Dunn was definitely the best like defender that you probably didn't want to see.
Okay, when you were playing, what's the chant in opposing student section directed at you, the one that irritated you the most? Because I know you remember these things. These are what guys remember.
Honestly, I wouldn't say none of them really irritated me.
Okay.
But there were some really good ones. I mean, Cameron was really good. Maryland, my freshman year, honestly, I didn't even play a minute in the game, because I was so upset because I wanted to be out there. But I mean, they had a really good they were kind of dirty, but like they were really they were really good. They were really funny too. So Yeah.
Do you remember any like verbatim sort of like that comes to mind, like a little
I
jingle that a group
I mean,
said?
I just remember like one of them at Duke that was like Tyler, like they had a sign and it was like Tyler Lewis, you must be this tall to play basketball. And then I was like below the sign. And, like those are the stuff that I just remember. And I like,
Sure.
and then like one like this guys at Seton Hall, they held up a sign that was like, and I went up to him after the game. It was like hilarious. It's like Tyler Lewis still eats off the kids menu. I was like, I mean, I like honestly with that stuff and like if you let it bother you, they're just gonna be on you even more. So like I feel like if you just approach it, like I was like, man, that's great. And then like
Yeah.
they would never like say anything else to me the whole game.
Yeah. You got to respect the creativity
Yeah.
because there are some chants that are just, we've heard for years and years. And it's like, come on, you can do better than that. But like you said, when they can get something out that catches your attention, they deserve a little bit of props, right?
They do. They do. I mean, they're fans. Like
They're fans.
I would hope or my fans when I played at NC State or
Yeah,
Butler would do the same thing to the
sure.
opposing team. Like, I mean, or even right now, like, I mean, that's what like fans are for. Like, you know, they're there to enjoy the game too and give the other team heck. I feel like.
Sure. When you were playing, what was the worst you ever took a loss? Like you were so hard on yourself after the game and you're just like, oh, you kept replaying it, and even maybe forced you to like go in the gym right after the game or something like that. Where what was the loss that you took the hardest in your career?
I would probably say my last loss at both of my at NC State and um, Butler. At NC State, we were playing St. Louis in the NCAA tournament, and had a shot to win the game. It rimmed in and out, and I still remember we left that next morning because we stayed the night, and I stayed up literally like all night long. I couldn't even sleep, and as soon as we got back, I was like, man, I'm just gonna like went in the gym and like practice that shot like hundreds of times. Like, how did this shot not go in? And that was really tough. And honestly, like it was one of the hardest moments of my basketball career because what do you dream of? Like when you're playing in the backyard, you're 3, 2, 1, like
Hmm.
knocking the game winning shot down, and you have a shot to do that, and in the NCAA tournament, and I mean, you just miss it. I mean, it happens to everyone, but I mean, that was definitely a hard. I took that really hard. And then, of course, my last game of I guess my life so far. I mean, the UNC game in the Sweet 16. And just because after the game, like your college career is over. And at that time, I didn't know whether I was going to get into coaching or get into professional basketball or do whatever. And you're sort of just stuck between a rock and a hard place. Like, wow, like the everyday grind is very serious in college basketball. And then after that game, I'm like, wow, this went by way too quick.
Yeah.
And I think that was just the hardest moment for me to like getting on that bus to say, hey, I'm never gonna put on a Butler uniform again. And just realize like honestly, I didn't want to even take the uniform off because I didn't want that moment to be over. So
Wow, that's powerful. That's powerful, Tyler. And from that last game you played with Butler, when did you know that you never would put on any playing jersey? That the aspirations that you might have had of going pro, whether that's in the States or overseas, you were going to not pursue that way and that you wanted to get into coaching?
um probably around like mid-April. I even signed with it. I signed with the agent and everything, and I was all for going to play. Like my wife, well, my fiance at the time, we got married that summer. So my wife and I, we were already planning on living overseas, like right after the season was over. Like I thought that's what I really wanted to do, and then I had a chance to around it was around Easter, and got a call from Furman, and I was able to go down there and have a good conversation with Coach Ritchie and his staff, and I kind of fell in love with it, and I was like, this is kind of the route I really want to go, and as when I realized, I was like, man, coaching is going to be something that I can do for the rest of my life. So I kind of wanted to get a head start in the game and that way. So, I mean, obviously it's a really tough decision for me. When the ball starts bouncing when I was 3 years old, to have it stop at that last game. That's something you never really want to happen because, and because honestly, I had goals of playing professionally, no matter if it was in Europe or in the States. I don't
Mhm.
know where my playing career could have taken me, but I mean, that's something that I definitely like just thought about, prayed about, and talked to my family about. And I definitely thought coaching was kind of the best route to go.
As you develop this voice as a coach and you're garnering and gaining all this experience, now you're at Elon on the staff there. How do you differentiate the way you want to coach and the mission and the set of rules in which you want to be a coach to how your dad does things? And how are you separate as far as the way he likes to coach, but separating yourself from that in creating your own voice as a coach?
Well, I think everyone's different. Of course, I mean, like you said, my dad's a complete. I mean, he has a great role in my life, but I'm not going to do everything my dad does the same way.
Sure.
Um, and I think right now I've been able to be on 3 different staffs with 3 really good head coaches, and I've been able to learn from Coach Richie, Coach Dooley at ECU, and then Coach Stragi now. And honestly, each coach does something different, and I'm able to learn from each coach, and I'm able to pick to see like, hey, this is what I like from this coach. This is what I like from him. This is what I like from um, Coach Stragi or whatever. And
Yeah.
I'm able to learn from them and pick their brains. And so if I ever get the opportunity to become a head coach, I'll be able to like have things that I like and be able to be prepared because they set me up for that opportunity.
Yeah. I definitely see that in your future. And you're heading into your second season. So you joined Elon in 2019. And the way you looked at that season before it started to how it ended, obviously a bit abrupt, but how did you comprehend and digest that first season? What were the biggest teaching tools and experiences that you took from it?
I think the best part of like the first season for me is going into being able to be with Coach Stragi. Coach Stragi was at Butler my senior year.
Right.
So,
Okay.
so I was able. He was my individual coach, so I had a really good relationship with him, and he's a coach who believed in me from day one once he got to Butler, and we were able to establish a really good relationship. And I knew things were going to be different from a player to a coach relationship, and now a staff on staff relationship. But I mean, he's still like the most like he's an awesome coach. I can see from this side of things of why players always love him, like myself when I was playing. I mean, he cares for these kids like I've never seen before, and he's always going to put his players and staff before himself. Like, and he trusts us with us doing our job, and it's honestly nice to be around him and being around someone who respects me, trusts me, and I feel the same way about him too.
When you play for a coach like that, when you get to be on the staff with a coach like that, I feel like, Tyler, it makes you want to give it all, put everything on the line because you know the coach has your back. My final question for you here, Tyler, what was an instance when you were playing with Jordan Adams when you remember he made you laugh? A funny story on the court, off the court, something that I could send to him and say, hey, Jordan, you remember this?
Man, I wish you'd have gave me a heads up about that. But
Was
no,
it, yeah, like, was it maybe like something in practice, or would you guys hang out off, campus and video
no,
games or
I
in
don't
the
know.
dorm or?
There's so many good ones because Jordan Adams is a clown. Like he's just hilarious.
He
Um,
is. He's apparently like a really good video game player. And
oh,
I,
he was always playing video games.
yeah,
Um,
And he was a good football player. He was a quarterback.
Yeah,
And
I do
before
that. Yep. So, I mean, it's so hard just to pick one moment.
sure.
Man,
Because I was watching him on the basketball tournament, but I know he's working on getting through some of these injuries and getting back in shape. And I know he just had a kid, so that's probably been occupying his time. But yeah, we could always revisit that because I know that there's got to be some good stories like on the team bus or
yeah. No,
where
Jordan's awesome.
totally. Well, Tyler, let's do this again sometime. I'm so glad to talk, and hopefully we can do this and have basketball season and reminisce and talk stories because you're someone I have a lot of respect for, and I just see huge things in your future. So really enjoyed this conversation.
Yeah, thank you so much.